It's been tough sledding for the Allies in Salerno 43 so far in this game. Just have had some real serious difficulties. Have not taken a single village or town beyond Salerno itself. And the Ranger beachhead is in dire peril and was nearly driven into the sea on this last turn. The Germans pressed hard. They got a 3-to-1 edge with the Nebelwerfers and tank support. Now, obviously, people keep asking me about why do you have tanks in here? Well, because they have 2 attack factors. That's why. The shifts don't do you any good, but the attack factors are what matters there. And so they got a 3-to-1 odds attack on the beachhead, and that was pretty scary because there was no elite steps in there at the time during the German half of the turn to deal with that threat. But finally got some real luck on the determined defense, and use of the naval gunfire was sufficient to just hold off the defenders there. The attackers lost a step, and the defenders were all disrupted, but they held. So to reinforce that during the Allied turn, we've gone ahead and brought in a battalion of the 82nd Airborne, and that is legal because this is a port. It's a 1-strength port there, as you can see. And so that guy there, that'll help take the place of the Rangers, and for now that'll be sufficient. So that is how they're holding out there. The other near disaster for the Allies was German attacks, heavy attacks on, 45th Division? Yeah, 45th. 45th Division was almost, for all intents and purposes, destroyed on this last turn because the battalion up on what I'm going to call Ranger beachhead there was nearly driven into the sea and destroyed. And the regiment here and the understrength regiment and tank, I think that's tank destroyers there. Yeah, we're almost wiped out. It was a scary situation. The biggest one that needed to hold was this hex. Needed to hold because if they were driven out of there, these guys would have been surrounded by Zachbons and cut down, and they had 4-to-1 attack set up. So kind of seeing the writing on the wall there. I didn't use the Allied air, the U.S. air support to defend this. I just thought I'd take my chances that they'd somehow be able to hold and save the air support for the bigger attack, the more dangerous attack. And lucked out there. A die roll of 2 puts this guy just disordered, and then was able to use the air support there to knock the 4-to-1 down to a 3-to-1 attack. And again, a die roll of 2 just disrupts them, and they held in place. So a little bit of fortunate die rolling. It's kind of evened out, I guess. So what the Allies are doing on their half of the turn is they got a battalion of units from the 36th Division marching their way around. If they can get to this particular junction right here, that's going to cause a real scare to the supply issues. Now you can start worrying about the road network that's supplying the German forces that are pinching and cramping the beachhead here. And so that is kind of seeing that was about to begin to happen. Already started pulling Germans back in order to try to contract the lines and set up an orderly withdrawal through this pass, because that's the only pass northward open to them unless you go way down and around, and that's going to be harder for the Germans to do as time goes on. So that's something that's going to ease pressure on this beachhead attack. So I think the Germans have shot they've shot their strongest bolt in terms of attacking towards the beaches. I've been pretty careful about keeping the Germans away from gunfire, with the exception of the positions around Salerno. So what we're going to do now is 36 divisions lined up for a nice attack on this lone Fallschirmjäger battalion. That's, in order to get this massed attack here, they're going to have to be weak somewhere. So we're hitting them where they're weak there. And we're going to get another attack on this group here, another 3-to-1 attack if we use the core artillery. And I think that's a good use of that core artillery there, because if this guy is forced to any kind of retreat and they don't determine defense successfully, they both die. And now you've reduced their strength down by 2 units, and with the 16th Panzer Division in a few more turns having to withdraw entirely from the theater, i.e. from the game, that's a big deal. So that's kind of what I'm looking at there. I think we've weathered the storm. As far as the Allies go, I think we can weather the storm, start inflicting some losses, and kind of even things out on the Germans. No attacks available here. Obviously, that's a half-strength unit coming in, and the other guys are disrupted, so there's no strength to attack that force there. However, we do have the 7th Armored, one of the brigades from 7th Armored is going to be attached to the commandos. So both commando battalions are attaching the 7th Armored. So this guy is, actually, I can't do that. I just realized the Allies can only attach battalions, so... Okay, well, that's not going to work quite as well as I had hoped or initially thought. What I can do is attack with 7th Armored, attach 1 battalion. That will give us 7, 8, and then, yeah, it'll still work. 9, 10. You can only have something once. So the half-strength battalion, he lands at the beach here. Well, I could actually land at that port there and remain in place. We'll supply enough to get a 1-to-1 attack on that, and then with some combat shifts from the naval gunfire, as well as Valiant and Warspite. I think that's a great use of that token right there. That would give us a nice, good attack to start relieving pressure, force these guys to diminish their strength a little bit. Plus, we're starting to sidle around this lone battalion, making things a little uncomfortable for them. Set up a Zoc bond here so that this guy can't slip down. And I thought that was safer than leaving this guy here. If he attacked and got some artillery support somehow, with any combat shifts, that's a little scary, because if you get a 2-hex advance, conceivably they could get into Salerno. I don't want to even risk that. So we put him there to keep on the safe side. So that's the situation that is going into the final segment of turn 8. Didn't really do anything with the Airborne boys there. They're secure kind of on their own. They're occupying a good position for now. We'll try to get them some reinforcements. And we'll have some guys coming in the next turn as well for the Allies. That will help them out a little bit. And we also got another... it's not a full regiment, is it? Yeah, it is a full regiment of 82nd Airborne. They landed through the beachhead at Red Beach, which is appropriate enough, and then they moved 1 hex inland. They're not going to be able to participate in anything now, but having these heavy-hitting elite units is going to go a long ways towards relieving the beachhead. Still debating whether I want to make another attack on Battipaglia. It's just infantry in there for now. The best I can get is a 1-to-1 attack, 2-to-1 if I use the core artillery. I'm kind of inclined to say, no, let's not attack for now. Save the supply points. Use that artillery for something a little bit later. Instead of blazing away with everything and getting low odds attacks, I think it's probably better for me not to do that and see how things develop for the next turn. Rather, the big attacks are going to be on this, which we're using U.S. Core Artillery for. This one here, we just have the odds for it, so we'll attack there. Hopefully get some good advances to bring tank destroyers into these locations, as they're going to need that tank support to ward off any adventurous counterattacks from the panzers threatening the beachhead. Last but not least, we use the battleships and try to hit that stack there. If we get lucky with it, yeah, that won't really work. Well, I was kind of thinking there might be a chance to get into that village, but probably unlikely. The motorized brigade there could, they might be able to make a breakthrough attack on it, but I don't think we're going to get that kind of a result. We'll see. We'll roll that out and see what happens. I think this is secure. I like the new threats developing here, and then looking ahead, we've got another tank battalion coming in and a recon unit for the... This is a nice unit to bring in, start exploiting the road network, and maybe set up some threats. I don't have to keep that division together. I could send them through the road network and start, blocking some road junctions, force the Germans to pull units out of here, is really what I'm trying to do. Or if they don't do it, let's trap them in there and kill them all. That's nightmare scenario for the Germans. But, you know, as the Allies, if you can lock them all up in your Zocs, it makes it harder for them to disengage and get out of there. So this could get really interesting as the game progresses. Looking ahead to turn 10, there's going to be another, actually a regiment from the 3rd Infantry Division. The 3rd Infantry will begin arriving, and then the Corps Artillery or the Divisional Artillery from 7th Armored Division will arrive. The Combined Arms Armored Unit, this is an armored unit, but it's different than the Silhouette Boys because these have infantry with them. The 22nd of the 7th Armored. They'll start showing up on turn 11 along with 8th Army. That'll be very slowly moving up that road network. They move really slow because they can't, all roads cost 1 movement point for them. So they're going to be, you know, moving at a snail's pace, but they will be making progress nonetheless. So that's a whole bunch of more units, and so the Germans will be cast definitely on the defensive by turn 11. For the Germans looking ahead, we got another battalion of Fallschirmjägers coming up on turn 9, a battalion from the 26th Panzer on turn 10, and then one more unit from the Hermann Goering, a battalion of infantry, good battalion of infantry showing up on turn 13. And on turn 14, that's when the 16th Panzer begins to withdraw. So got to look ahead to see what's coming up as it drives the strategy. So a lot of back and forth action here. Let me conclude by saying this. In the books I've read about this particular battle, you can detect the intensity on both sides as the Germans are coming so close to achieving their goals, but falling just short. The closer they get to the beachhead, they realize they can't drive the Allies into the sea. On the other hand, you have the Allies they feel like they're hanging on by their fingernails, and yet they hold on, and then they start to slowly turn the tide. And what's really been cool about this game is how it captures the feel of that particular campaign. That's an impressive quality in a war game. So that's one of the things I'm liking so far about Salerno 43.